Loved ones, Management 3234, this is session 9. If we were together in class, this would be day 4 of week 2. And I only have one thing to share with you administratively, and this is just more of our next step. This is nothing that you have to do. This is just a point of awareness. The next class session that we have, the next video session, I'll be making a presentation to you about how to develop a PMT statement, product market technology statement, and how to competently do a venture screen. And the significance of those two things is those are both deliverables. When you turn in your venture journal, and what I think is the last day of class, you will also turn in a PMT statement and a venture screen. And I hope that you will have done them before you do the venture journal, but the timing is less important. Just wanted you to know that the next class session, I'll be presenting to you information about the product market technology statement, how to do one, and also how to competently do a venture screen, because they are important deliverables later in this summer session. So I want to share with you something that just comes out of my reading. I have had the extreme good fortune to teach and do research and leadership for probably 25 years or more. That's a big deal for me. If I could, I would only teach leadership in organizations. I love that class. I'm so jacked up when I'm in a room if I'm doing that. I love everything that I do, but that is number one on my hierarchy of things that I love to teach. So, recognizing that I want to talk to you about leadership, really fundamentally what I want to talk to you about is team size, the size of a team. Now, when I say team, I'm talking about the teams that you would probably think about intuitively, and that would be teams that are interdependent. The team members rely on others to do things simultaneously so that the team can accomplish its goals. I just described a football team, a basketball team, special forces, a team, any number of things like that. Some teams don't do things simultaneously. They don't have this interdependence. They do things sequentially. You just simply add up stuff. For example, we have golf teams, both for men and women, here in the athletic departments at Georgia Southern. And let's say for the sake of discussion that 7 golfers play in a particular tournament. I recognize that any one of them can either struggle or demonstrate some individual excellence. But the team score simply takes the scores of the 7 golfers and it sums them up. It's additive. So some teams pool their activities, they add them up, but the teams that you and I think about typically are teams that have interdependence, where we rely on each other to do things simultaneously to accomplish the task. So if you think about a classic team, one that has this interdependence. The leadership literature takes on the concept of size. The question would be, at what point does a team get so big that it literally disaggregates into multiple smaller teams? And the literature is relatively clear. The leadership literature says that 12 may be the optimal size, the optimal number of members in a team, because we have a great deal of evidence to suggest if teams get larger than 12, they do something called fissioning. They break off into smaller groups. If we have a team of 22 people, is it likely that 4 of you will do something and 7 or 8 of you will do something else and 6 of you will do a third thing? It is entirely likely. It happens often. And when I hear somebody like the CEO of Southwest Airlines talking about the team, 35,000 employees, that's a platitude. It's an empty promise. It's not a team. It may be a high-functioning organization, but it's not a team. People overuse the word. People overuse so many words in the English language. Inappropriate, the most overused word in the English language. And there are many others. So this thing about the leadership literature sort of suggesting that that's the optimal size. If a team gets bigger than 12, then it tends to literally fission and to break to 2 or more smaller sub-teams. And at that point, they don't necessarily have a unified purpose. They may be working at cross purposes. You and I are going in one direction, and the other 6 people or 7 people going in another direction. So 12 is thought to be the optimal size. And the fun thing is I've got a couple of things that are supportive of that. We have in the U.S. military a command called JSOC. It is the Joint Special Operations Command. And JSOC grabs all the special operations units in each of the branches of service, and it has oversight. It provides them with missions and resources and things like that. The Marines have the Marine Raiders. It's called MARSOC. The Army Special Operations Command has Delta Force, Rangers, and the Special Forces. The Navy, of course, has the SEALs. The Air Force has a group, I'm going to screw this up, I think they're called parajumpers. So all the branches of service, except the Space Force doesn't have one yet. Huh? But you get a lightsaber. How cool is that? I think. Just a guess. So, in the Army's Special Operations Command, it's got this incredibly high-functioning group of soldiers called Special Forces. And you might know them as the Green Berets. But the point is that Special Forces are typically organized into 12-soldier A-teams. That's exactly what it's called, like the capital letter A. And if you're part of a 12-person A-team, everybody on the team, there's a team lead and an executive officer, and everybody on the team is cross-trained in 2 or 3 different functions. I could be primarily a combat medic, but I could also be a rifleman or an assistant gunner to a machine gunner or whatever the case. I may know a great deal about demolitions. I may be trained in that. So my point is there's a great deal of cross-training, and the reason that's true in a Special Forces A-team is because since these people are warriors, it is highly likely that some members of the team on a mission will get killed or wounded. That means that other people have to backfill. They have to already possess those skills, that training. So Special Forces A-team are incredibly talented, incredibly cohesive, just remarkable soldiers, and the size of a Special Forces A-team is 12 soldiers. I am reminded too that in the New Testament we discover that Christ had 12 disciples. Imagine that. That was about 2,000 years before the leadership literature, wasn't it? So all I'm saying is the number 12 has a great deal of significance when it comes to team size, and that was brought to the forefront by some current readings and stuff I was doing. So let me now jump to today's work. Today's work is, it's in the Journal of Management Education article, and we're going to do Appendix F, Frank, and it's going to be session 6. And what you'll see, excuse me please, that is drainage, not the coronavirus. What you'll see is we're really only talking about the format of the deliverables, what you are going to give me on whatever that day is at the end of the spring session, your venture journal and that sort of thing. So, and I'll also talk about the concept of best two, because as it is presented in the article, it was aimed at a different usage, a different audience. So let me pull up Appendix F in the article and we'll talk about it. I'm going to look first at session 6 in the body. This is the part of the paper that speaks to the entrepreneurship educators. And that first sentence is authentic. If we were together doing this session bords on celebratory. You've just finished this important, rigorous process, and you've got some pretty neat output, some pretty neat stuff to share. So, all students turn your venture journal, and in the context that we present here, you would make short presentations of their best two. We've done this successfully. Let's assume that Sadie McDaniels has 15 really cool ideas. But what this requirement would impose upon her is she would have to identify the two that she thought would be most promising and then present them. And the reason we did this in this format is again, this article is written for educators who primarily teach to MBA students who meet once a week. And the program at Louisville certainly, I think, is representative of a lot of high-quality programs in entrepreneurship at the master's level. All of our kids in that program took a course in the fall of their first year called New Venture Creation, where they went through the systematic search thing and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then at about the midpoint, at about week 10-ish, they would literally form teams and do an industry analysis, because they'd wrap around an idea. They'd wrap around some exciting concept that somebody presented. They'd form teams and wrap around an idea, and then in the spring, they had a 15-week semester-long course in literally business plan development. They would have to write a business plan of sufficient quality to attract equity capital. And in that environment, because we were in Louisville, a major city, a lot of people in private equity, a lot of people in the entrepreneurial community, in that environment, they would actually present their business plan to a panel of judges, and the judges were all either venture capitalists or serial entrepreneurs. And those people would just give them rich insights and do a scoring rubric and give them all kinds of guidance. The panel of judges had no role in the grade. I awarded the grade that the teams earned. But my point is that this was a high-speed environment. Indeed it was. So, but your best two will be different. So what you're going to do is you're going to give me your venture journal in electronic format, and in the journal, you're going to identify the ideas that you think are the best two. When I say best two, the two that are most promising from the perspective of you taking them to market, of you commercializing them. So let me go down to Appendix F. There won't be a lot there. You know, let me finish this comment before I leave here. I told you that this particular article was built with the audience in mind of entrepreneurship educators teaching to MBA students. So the notion about the kids, every student in the class standing up and in 60 seconds each present their best two ideas. What would happen is I may be sitting in there, and I've gone through this process, but there's nothing that I've done that energizes me. There's nothing that excites me. And you stand up, and in my view, you knock it out of the park. You have this idea that just really jacks me up. So, since we, as classmates, need to form teams of 4 or 5 people, as soon as the class is over, I'm going to run up and say, hey, love your idea, can I be on your venture team? I'd like to contribute. So that's our purpose in each of the students making an oral presentation of about 60 seconds in duration of their best 2 ideas. It is to generate excitement and to have students coalesce into teams of 4 or 5. Because for the last 5 weeks of the semester, they had to work together to do an industry analysis and a venture stream. And then in the spring semester, the entire group went forward and they took the concepts that they had sort of discovered and begun to develop and turn them into a high quality business plan. So I wanted to talk to you about this, about students gathering informally and that sort of stuff. So that said, this is not something you're going to be doing, but I want you to see the connection as you read the article and think, wait a minute, Gordon's not asking us to do that. So let me go down now to Appendix F, Foxtrot. All right, it says your 3-ring binder is due today. If we were meeting face-to-face, it would be. What you're going to give me is a document in a digital format. It won't be a 3-ring binder. I urge you to maintain a 3-ring binder. What you've just gone through, if you've done this competently, would give you a durable skill set. If you leave this university, this college, and in 10 years or 15 years, you have an idea, or you think you'd like to be entrepreneurial, you're in this wonderful position that you've already been equipped. You know how to search for the idea. You know how to evaluate, to decide if it has commercial potential. You know what to do after that in terms of developing strategies, forming a venture team, marshaling resources, and executing. But the point is, I really hope that you personally, you individually, maintain a 3-ring binder with everything that you've done here. The personal accomplishments, the matrix, building a consideration set, developing a search strategy, updating the consideration set, and then this thing that brings it all together, and that is the venture journal would add to those 5 things by simply having the venture idea, and we have a template for it here. So all I want you to understand is that this says your 3-ring binder is due, you're going to send me something electronic, but I really hope you have a 3-ring binder, because whether you intended it or not, whether you realize it or not, if you've done this competently, you now have a durable skill set, something that could last you the rest of your life, if you indeed decide to do something entrepreneurial. So, I want you to use the template, and of course you know my address and stuff like that. I want you to use the template that we present here in Appendix F for you to report your venture ideas in your venture journal. So let me scroll down so that that's visible. You'll see that this does not differ meaningfully from what we did in a prior session. Describe your idea, give me a working title. Why do you think this thing is going to add value? What were you doing when it happened? Identify the domains where you search, the information channels. What strategies did you use to tap it? And again, when you take this stuff together collectively, it's powerful. It lands heat, it throws a punch. So this is the template, and again, at this point, this template for the venture ideas that you have, and I would hope that you have 15 or 20 or 30 or 40, I really would. Because I've said explicitly, we do not want you to rule out things because you will prejudge them. We don't want you to do that. This is a process of discovery. I'm going to search for and discover ideas that have commercializable potential. I'm not yet. This is not the stage where I'm taking to the market or trying to seek capital or whatever the case may be. This is a discovery process. How do I search for, identify domains where I have competence, and then search for and discover ideas that have the potential to go to market? So when I say to you, I expect that you would have 15, I certainly hope so. I would think that probably the lowest I've ever seen might have been 5 or 6. And the most I've ever seen was probably 42. But again, I expect you to fall somewhere in between those 2 boundaries, in between the upper and the lower boundary. And again, we'll just see what happens. So, your venture journal, again, will combine everything that you've done. It'll have each of these 6 appendices in it. A for the personal accomplishments, Appendix B for the matrix, Appendix C to build the consideration sets. You know, what's the domain? What are the information channels? And those channels together form a consideration set. D is the search strategies. You're going to literally articulate. You're going to write down what the frequency is, what I'm going to do specifically. E, echo, is you actually updating the consideration set. Over the course of this roughly 5-week summer session, you will tell me what you found, the ideas, and whether or not you thought they were valueless or promising or exciting, whatever the case may be. And then, of course, the F thing, the Frank, the Foxtrot appendix, is the one where you literally develop this template for every venture idea that you have, and you will have been working on that earlier on. And then the venture journal is all of those things combined, those 6 appendices combined. And in this case, on the same day, you'll also, let's assume that you reach this point where you have an idea that you just think is remarkable, okay? Pick that idea, that one idea, and for that idea, develop a product market technology statement. We'll talk about that in our very next session. And for that one idea that you think is most promising, develop a venture stream. So this is the last piece of the puzzle in the venture journal, Appendix F. Your venture journal will have those 6 appendices in it. That's what you're going to submit to me electronically on whatever that day is in July. So, the concept of the best 2, again, you're not going to be making an oral presentation because right now you and I are not living in that world. But what I would like you to do on this best 2 thing is I want you to identify. It could be a handwritten note or anything at all. I want you to say that these 2 ideas represent my best 2. Because you're going to pick one of them and you're going to do the PMT statement of the venture screen about it. But just identify the 2 that you think are most promising. When I say most promising, viable? Could you take it to market and actually make money and have other people benefit? So that's when I say most promising, is the idea of viable. If you were another Elon Musk and you said, well, I'm going to establish a colony on Mars, okay, it takes about 3 years at light speed to get there from here. We don't yet have any machines that travel at light speed. Don't think it's achievable, is it? That's just a madman who smokes weed on TV. But a lot of people love him. I'm not one of them. Yeah, I think he's a lunatic. So, again, that wraps up session 9 in terms of content. Anytime you have any concerns or questions, reach out. I will certainly make every effort to clarify. And the attendance question for today is strikingly simple. Broadly speaking, what do theorists who study leadership believe the optimal size for a team is? Beyond that size, it's too big. What do leadership theorists, people who study it, and what do leadership practitioners, people who do it, think the max size for a team is? So that's it. Done for today. Love you.